Okay, so we have this course is called Field Development. I'm not going to repeat all information. Okay, so don't just go to sleep yet. Okay, and the first thing to note, we are going to mainly focus on this part. Okay, field development. And the idea is that there are two parts, okay, development and operation, and the mindset is very different from one to another, okay? One of them, you don't have a system yet, okay? You are designing the system in the best way. So it has a few things that you have to be able to, yeah, let's maybe make it here. Uh, what is the goal, the ultimate goal of field development? Not, no. It's a bit more greedy than that, okay? Than to produce oil. Huh? No. Make money, yeah? So you have to maximize the revenue or the profit to your shareholders, okay? And even more in a more egoistic way, okay? You have to maximize the profit that you make to your shareholders. If you're an oil company, or Statoil, you have to maximize that profit, okay? So that's just keep that in mind always. People say maximize recovery, produce oil. No, it's about profit, okay? You want to maximize. The other things come, around that, but you want the main goal. Well, you know what? I changed computer, and they told me this is the best. Okay, that's it's like there is a computer from Windows called Surface. It's the best to write, no problem. You will feel very smooth. Okay, but this computer has a line, a vertical line here that is like the twilight zone. Okay, something happens here. So I'm very tempted to take it, bring it back to our IT guy, and say I will stay just with my computer, which is 5 years old, the previous, and yeah. So going back, so make, how they say, let me just, okay, so maximize, I can say value, okay, or I say profit to my shareholders. Well, let's try once more, okay. But I have to be able to keep something, also something that I have, and it's a very important restriction that I have, not only to maximize profit, but also I have to be able to produce by producing first in a safe, okay, in a way that is safe for society, safe for people, and in a way that is also with the smallest environmental impact. Okay, so these two things are important. So, uh, okay. So remember that's the purpose, okay? And there are a few things that I have that are involved in that process. So let me just bring it down to next page. Okay. Okay, there are a few aspects that I have to take into account. Okay. So one of them is to decide, okay, to take decisions. And these decisions, I have a process which, I have a process which is very typical, which is I first find the problem, okay, or define the problem. Okay. Then I have to collect information. Okay. Then I have to identify the alternatives. Okay. Then I have to compare the evidence, somehow analyze. Okay. And then I have to choose an alternative. Okay. More or less, that's like the very rough workflow. Okay. How I take decisions. And the decisions I have to take are of the main features of the field. Okay. So first, I have to say that we are not going to cover in this course too much the first two parts. Okay. To find the problem is like to find the field or the reservoir that we are going to develop. Okay. For that, you have many other courses here in this department that they focus on what we call the exploration, try to define exploration for oil and gas resources. Okay. Also, the part on the collecting information, you get a lot of information on this other course. So we're going to, of course, we have to give some background on that. Okay. But this course is not focused on how to find oil. Okay. Or what things do I have to make to collect information about oil. Okay. I'm going to give you a small background such that you have an idea. But if you are more interested in more information, you can take other courses here. We're going to be focusing on the second part, which is try how do you identify different alternatives to produce that field? How to analyze all this evidence? So how do I, and then to choose an alternative. Okay, how do I start? How do I choose an alternative? And here there is one thing. So how do I typically compare alternatives? Okay, how do you, for example, if you're going to buy, let's say you're going to buy a bicycle, okay, how do you compare choices? Yep. Yes. Okay. The value, okay, we say, let's say how much it costs. That's one way that we use to compare, right? That way, to put it more fancy for field development, okay, we are in NTNU. So we have, let's say, we have to use some sort of a performance indicator, okay? So to analyze on this part, we have to say a performance indicator, okay? Or sometimes people call it KPI, okay? Key performance indicator. You make a set of indicators and you're going to base your decision on that, okay? And on that respect, we are going to cover very, so I'm going to put here in red, so the topics that we are going to cover related to that, okay? So we are saying we are not going to talk too much about how do you find the reserves, how do you estimate, how do you get information, but after you have that phase, how do you start and do the planning process, okay? So for that we have, I just want to give you an overview of the field development, okay, which is very tight, which is connected very tight with the life cycle of um oil and gas fields. Okay, to get an overview how the process looks like, how it is typically performed. There are many different variations. Each company has slightly customized process, but in general, all of them follow the same rough structure. Okay. And then the other thing is these key performance indicators, okay? That what kind of indicators are mainly used to take decisions, okay? And one of these, we're going to have a short discussion on economic indicators, okay? Because taking out all the different other things, what I use to make decisions and to decide on one feature or another is basically mainly some economic number, okay, some value number that I assign to the project in a very simplistic way, okay, very, very roughly speaking. And then I have another aspect of field development that, and I think here we're going to invest, okay, so here we're going to make some rough calculations. So that part will be just to give you an overview. So that part will be like descriptive, and you're going to get an idea how the process looks like. On the economic indicators, we're not going to go too deep on that, okay? Because there is another course in petroleum economics in this department. But just to give you, you need to have a basic knowledge what kind of indicators do we use to decide between the different options. But then what we are going to cover more in detail, it's going to be the technical aspects, okay, or technical constraints. Okay, because at the end, after all, we have a physical system. Okay, we have a car, or in the example of the car, we have a car. We have a physical system. So in order to take a good decision, and it's not that we are going to buy that system the way it is. Okay, we are going to customize that system, select each one of the pieces of that system. So in that case, we have to understand some of the technical drivers of how that system works. What kind of things is like in the example of the car, right? Very simple. You say, well, I use the cost, right? The one that is cheaper. But I also maybe have to be sure that the car fits my parking garage, okay? Or I have a place to store the bike. So this is a technical constraint, and that I have to understand. Okay, I have to understand that the car, I have to park it, okay, and I need some space, some space to park. And in this part, we are going to look into, well, okay, we're going to be looking into something that is called field performance. Okay, we want to know first how the field performs. Okay, how the field, and here we're going to look at the system which is coupled. Okay, is due to an interaction between reservoir, which is the most important part, the crucial part. Okay, then you have wells that are drilled in that reservoir to produce the fluid, and then at the end we have the surface, or this what we call the gathering or surface network. The behavior of that coupled system, and that historically creates some issues, because here, even in NTNU, when you graduate, you are either reservoir engineer or you're well production engineer. Okay, you know more or less what the other guy is doing, but you don't work very much together. And the field, it will perform with the combination of both. Okay, it won't be alone the reservoir, won't be alone the well, but it will be basically the combination of both. So we are not going to use the most advanced techniques. We're not going to use advanced reservoir simulator to look into that, okay? But just to have a minimum physical understanding of how the system performs, okay? And what do I get out of that system? What is important to look into that part? Well, okay, then the next item that we're going to look at, okay, here we also have to say what is the effect of artificial lift and boosting, because many fields now, they are adding some extra component that I use it to increase the performance of the field. Okay, it's going to improve the performance of the field. And we have to include those elements now from the beginning to make a planning. When do we need it, if we need it, and what kind of equipment we have to use, okay, to improve the performance of the field. So we're going to be dedicating a lot of time on that, a lot of time of the course. Okay, then we're going to see some things, some practical things about the production system and configuration. Okay, how does the system looks like, the production system, collection of wells, collection of the software's network, the processing system, and how it goes together. Okay, what kind of considerations we have to make to decide between one or the other. Okay, then we have another point we're going to cover is flow assurance. Okay, flow assurance basically refers to ensuring the interrupted flow of oil and gas, okay, from the reservoir all the way to the processing facilities. So we have a bunch of different problems that we can have, and we have to have a strategy to attack these problems. And that's something I have to take into account from the beginning, from the design phase, to try to foresee if I'm going to have these problems or not, and have a strategy to attack these problems. And then the last part we are going to cover, it will be the marine considerations for, okay. We are talking about offshore fields, so we have the marine aspect, the marine environment affects somehow the selection of how I design my field, how I plan the field. So this will be, if I were to summarize the course, we are going to go only on appreciation level, the process, so you're familiar with it. You know when you're working on a company, in which phase you're working, how decisions are made. We're going to see how do I assign value to this project, okay, in a very simple way. And then we're going to go into the technical aspects or constraints. It's like in the example of the bicycle. I cannot choose anyone, but I have to choose the one that fulfills the technical constraints. And sometimes it's not easy to recognize these technical constraints, okay? It can be sometimes difficult to see what is important. Okay, so let's, what do you think we take a break? Yeah, 10 minutes? Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, the reference material, right? So good we have people awake in this course. So that's the main book, okay, that we use. Of course, you can get it on the library. You can also buy it for yourself. But I will be, like in class, I will be discussing some of the things that are shown in the book. Okay, so it's not you don't have to buy it. You don't necessarily have to buy it. But if you want a book where some of these things are presented, this is the best. This is the best we have. Okay, I'm going to give. On top of that, a lot of material to read. Okay, so we have that's reference material from other sources. We have articles. We have parts of that's from a book of reservoir. Then we have this is from that book that I showed you before. Then we have another article, a big part of the book. So I made a collection of different material. I think you should, if you want to reinforce some of the things that are given in class, and also if you want to, get some additional information, you can read that. You're also going to get my compendium, and we are not going to go through everything in that compendium, okay? But I will refer in class when I discuss something, I will refer where you can find that information or more. Okay. Then we have supplementary information that is not mandatory to read. Okay, we have 2 articles. I will put all of that on Blackboard, and of course my compendium. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that, you know. Okay, but if you want a book that has most of the information, I will say this is your best choice. Okay, and if you want, it's a very nice book. You can buy it, you can get it from the library, but I will try to give you enough material to read such that you can complement what's being taught in class. Okay, now let's talk about the life cycle. Okay, it's very important just to see, and maybe that's something that many of you already know. Okay, but what is the life cycle of a hydrocarbon field? You have to change the battery maybe. And the computer refuses to work. I think now it completely crashed for some reason. Doesn't I want to have lecture? You know, the first week it said, "What are you doing? You don't teach on the first week." The what? No, doesn't get because usually it should be like a mouse, you see, but doesn't. It's like it got deactivated for some reason. Life cycle of a hydrocarbon field. Okay, we have exploration. Okay, if we put it in boxes, we have exploration. In some place of that exploration box, we have a discovery. If we don't have a discovery, we don't have a field. Then we have the appraisal, and this phase sometimes can be very long because I have difficulties to appraise how much you have. Then I go into the field planning process. Okay, then I go into the construction and execution. Okay, until finally I enter into operations. Okay, and never forget there is a very important phase of the field, which is decommissioning and abandonment. Okay, where I simply shut down the field and I try to leave everything the way it was originally. So those are all the different phases a field goes through. Okay, and be careful, even you see that all blocks they have the same size, they don't take up the same space in time. Okay, the same period. Typically, maybe from exploration all the way to execution and operation, that's a process. It varies very much, but it can take from 5 to 10 years. Okay, 5 years is not very 5 to 10 years. While in the operation phase, the field might be producing for 5, 10, 15, 30 years. Okay, so we just the scale. Don't let the size of the box confuse you. That's something that happens very fast, and that's part of the challenge. This part on the left happens very fast compared to the rest. Okay, that this one might be 5 or 10 or 30 years. Okay, there are fields still producing more than 30 years. Okay, decommissioning happens a bit faster. maybe 2 to 5 years, starting the decommission. And that's something that we have to be careful with these two, okay? On one part, the development, I'm dealing with a system I have to design, okay? But the thing is that there are a lot of uncertainties involved, okay? I don't know what will be maybe exactly the size, the fluid properties. Some things are very unclear, and I have to take a lot of decisions under that environment, okay? So there I have, if I make a simplified drawing, okay, and that drawing you will see it many places, okay, that will be time. If you look at the amount of decisions that I have to take, okay, they are huge, okay. I have a lot of decisions and a lot of features that I can decide upon, okay, of the field, so that we can make like with a very wide triangle, okay. And at the end, after, when I reach the construction and execution, here I have basically operation. Okay, then with time I get less and less things that I can define from the field. So these are the number either of features, field features, okay, or decision variables that I have. But on the information side, okay, it's exactly the opposite. Initially, I have very limited information, okay, but then as I start maybe to develop the field operation and producing, that information becomes bigger and bigger. Okay. So I have to find a proper way to make those decisions with very limited information. Okay. In the operation phase, you have to change the mindset completely. Okay. You have less uncertainty, you have more trust about how your system looks like, but you're trapped with the system already. You're trapped with an existing system in operation. Okay. Let's maybe put it here. Okay. In operation, I have to change, let's call it the mindset. Okay, here I'm trapped. Okay, I call it trapped. Sometimes maybe you made a good decision initially, which is fine. Maybe you did a poor decision, but trapped with an existing system. Okay, and that means I have to exploit. Okay, already made existing system. All the features have been defined, so I have to exploit uh, the exploit the advantages that it has, exploit the advantages, okay, but also you try to reduce also and mitigate the deficiencies, okay. So it's a different mindset. Development, I try to define, have very little information. Operations, I'm already stuck, I'm already trapped with an existing system, so I have to find a way to exploit all the advantages of that system and mitigate the deficiencies. Okay, so now on how the field development process is made, okay, how the field is very similar to this to the life cycle of the field. Okay, so let's start with one box first. We have what we call typically is pre-exploration. Okay, and basically that also we call it scouting. Sometimes you have to scout for some indication that where might be a promising area to start doing exploration. Okay, and I can do that by different ways, but one of the things is companies, they try to go to areas they are maybe familiar with, they have already some kind of asset, the politics plays a role, the strategy of the company, there are many other things that are taken into account, and you're going to read on that. Okay, I'm not going to give you the whole boring story. Okay, I'm going to give you, we're going to have an activity next week where you're going to read on that. Okay, but pre-exploration, basically I'm trying to scout and get information about an area. Okay, when I'm sure I have a particular area that I think is promising, that I want to do further exploration, then I go into the phase where I have exploration. Okay, typically in pre-exploration, you get you buy data from other companies, from a third party. If Statoil, they say, well, we think we want to look at that area in Mozambique, they go and they acquire data from another company. Okay, in exploration, typically a, you have to get the company has to get a production license. Okay, and maybe if you go to the website of the Norwegian Petroleum Directorate, that's something you should all be familiar with, npd.no. Okay, it's a very nice website. It has a lot of information, and it also gives you information about these blocks. Okay, the way the countries make it, typically, they split. I think I had a figure here. Okay, yeah, I have this figure. Okay, they split the area, or the area where you can explore, in blocks. Okay, the different area where you can produce and explore and find for hydrocarbons, they split it in blocks, and they open, they call it licensing rounds. I think in Norway they are twice per year. Okay, so you get a production license through a licensing round. Okay. Well, first you have to apply, right? You have to apply which block you like, okay, and then you have to see if the government, they approve the license, and after that you have the exclusive right to make exploration whatever you want with that area. Okay, you have the exclusive right to make exploration. The some of the fees, okay, that you have to pay to get access, at least in Norway, they are 34,000 NOK. Just wait, per square kilometer. Okay, not so easy, and per year. Okay, that's the first year. First year. Okay, the second year it goes up to 68,000. Okay, the second year, and then the third year it goes to 137. If you don't do anything with the license. Okay, if you sit there, let's say you're just buying a strategic block. Okay, you apply for a license and you think there is something there, but you're just waiting for the market to improve, you're going to be penalized. Okay, every year that you just hold that greedy, in a way, don't doing anything, not doing anything, that license, that block, is going to be increasing, and you will have to pay for that. Okay, so the mechanism is in a way that incentivize just to start doing something with that block. Okay, exploration basically gives you the right not only to produce, not only to, no, it's not only production, okay, but basically that you can stick something in the ground. Okay, you can drill a well and find the reservoir. So basically you can make exploration drilling. Okay, because there are many things you can get from seismic, you can get from, trying to map without having any intervention, but at the end, ultimately, just to verify, you maybe have the structure exactly, you have the location, you have the layers, everything. The only way to say if you have oil and gas is to go there and to find by yourself, okay, by exploration drilling. So at some point in this phase, I have a discovery, right? inside of that phase. And then I have to make, maybe I have to make this appraisal. It's not enough that I say, well, I have oil and gas, but I should have in enough quantities that it makes it economical, okay, that it makes it attractive. So sometimes all of this phase is called in companies is called business case identification. Okay, it's just to identify if I have first which area might be attractive, then make an exclusive right to look at that area, then explore that area, discover something, try to see how much I have, and then at the end I have the first part of the process. The process is carried, and I think that was, they call it the Ericsson method, okay? It's called by going through DG, decision gates. Okay, and here we have our first decision gate exactly in that location. This is called DG0. Okay, and there I have to decide. Remember, see all the conditions. I have to make pre-exploration, I have to make exploration, appraisal, know already the size, and I have to decide what to do with that. Okay, and there are different options. One of the options is, let's see, DG0. Okay, you can say, yes, I have enough amounts of oil and gas that they are commercial and I want to go for it. So then I issue something that is called SOC, Statement of Commerciality. Okay, I say, yes, I found commercial amounts of oil and gas. Yes, I have intention to develop this in a field in the future. Yes, we are going to move to the next phase. Okay, in that decision gate. Then I can say, simply I can decide, for example, to wait. Okay, in which case will I wait? Maybe the amounts of oil and gas are not big enough, okay? They might only be profitable if the barrel is above, for example, 60 or 70, okay? So they decide to wait to see if it improves in the future, okay? Then they can also decide to make more appraisal, okay? Or what is the other option I have? Well, I have still two more options, okay? I can relinquish the license. That means I give it back to the government. I say, I found something or I didn't find, and I now go give back the license to the government. So they can issue on the next year, they can issue to companies, to another person. And then the other option is to sell the discovery, okay? It might be that it was a company who got the license who was not really a big operator or it didn't have the intentions to produce that field. We just did the exploration, did the finding, and then they found another partner that wants to develop the field. Okay, so are basically all the options that I have here. DG is made in different ways. Okay, that comes a big variation in every company. But usually I have to do a series of technical, economical, social, many different evaluations, compound that in a report, in a presentation, and then you have a group of people, which is typically some sort of a board in the company, that they take decisions based on that. Okay, so I progress making evaluations between every stage. When I reach at the end of the stage, I take decisions based on that, about what to do. Now, if I decide now to go to the next step, okay, what is the next block? The next block, everything will be englobed in what is called the project planning, okay? But we have to be very careful. We have three very distinct phases that we have in between. This DG is, I think they also call it the Ericsson method. Okay. And it's a system not only the oil industry is using, but also other industries where you have a big project. Okay. Then comes the part on the box on feasibility studies. And the goal of that, in a very rough way, is to find one or at least preferably several, right? But to find at least one alternative how to develop the field. Okay? So here, I'm not sure where to put it. We're getting out of space. So okay. So maybe just put a star someplace. Find alternatives to develop the field. Okay. And it should be many of them. You should have different ways that you develop the field. And we are going to see now that involves maybe different using different platforms, sending the oil to different place, finding a customer for the gas in different place. But you have to find ways that you can make that economically viable. Okay, but at least in theory it should be just one. Okay, you should find at least one. And then the next decision gate is called DG1. Okay. And in Norwegian, those of you who will be working in the Norwegian industry, they also call it BOK. And that stands for Beslutning om Konkretisering. Okay? It's like decisions or deciding on concretizing, I think. Okay? So those of you who will be working, BOK stands for Beslutning om the Norwegians, is it okay, the spelling? Yes? Or if you don't understand the writing, so. Okay. And there, again, I follow the same recipe. Okay. Go create a series of studies, a series of report, I make a summary, and again, a board takes a decision. Okay. Then the next step is what is called concept planning. Okay. And that ends up in DG2, and that is BOB. And in the concept planning, the main idea is that you have to develop each one of these alternatives, try to see the details of each of one of these alternatives, but then you have to choose one, okay, the most attractive, the one that you think is the most attractive, okay? So you have to, how do we put 2 stars, maybe? Okay, you have to develop further all alternatives and choose one, okay, which we assume is the best way. Okay? And that's what is done basically in DG2. Okay, you decide on one, you look on one alternative. And you see it's quite early. We still maybe don't have much information about the size, about many things, but I have here already in DG2 to define one concept, period. That's the one I'm going to use. Okay? And this BOV stands for Beslutning om Videreføring. What is that in English? Decision on continuation. Okay. Then after that, I have the third part of the planning, which is called the pre-engineering. And that ends up in DG3. And that's something, that point, something that you have to remember. DG3 is very special. In pre-engineering, you take that alternative that you found and you develop almost every detail inside. Okay, what are you going to need to make that alternative possible? Okay, you make like some sort of a pre-design of that alternative, and then also you define what kind of components do you need for that system. Okay. And this one is called BO Beslutning om G. It stands for Genomföring. Genomföring. What is that, Ponoshk? In English, sorry. Execution, right? Genomföring. Yeah. We're going to finish soon. Don't worry. I see all of you are already bending down on the table. So this part is boring. So, but we have to know it. Okay, you have to know in which phase you are. Something very important that happens here is that the PDO is issued. The PDO is issued. Okay, and PDO stands for Plan for Development and Operations. Okay, or also in Norwegian is called PUT, and that's actually the name of the course came from that. PUT is Plan for Utbygging og Drift. Okay, for development and operations. Okay. An I issue is a document, and luckily we have a few documents available, and I'm going to give you the link or the document in class, but we have one from a field in Canada that's in English. Okay, and you see 561 pages. You have to say how are you going to develop the field, and it has a lot of things, and that you will have to do next week. Okay, that you have to do, that you have to go through to deliver this report. Okay, not only which alternatives, you have to talk about the subsurface, you have to talk about the marine environment, you have to do a lot of different studies to generate this report. 561, you are going to go through it, not me. Otherwise, I will bore you to death. Okay, then we have one more for Visun. I don't know where this came, but I found the link, and it's also in English, so it also gives you what kind of things were studied to issue that PDO. And we have one from Volve. You know, the Volve field, Statoil, Equinor, they released the data, and it's available for everyone, all of us. Actually, the other two are also available on the web. So, and this one is in Norwegian, okay? But it tells you exactly all kind of studies that have to be made, okay? And you will have to go through them in, in next week, okay? But the idea is that the company, they submit the report to the authorities, and then they just have to wait, okay? And the authorities, they have to approve the plan for developing the field, okay? Some things that can happen, they approve it right away, you go to the next phase, or it might happen, they say no, you have to rethink and you have to redo that part, okay? But that's the main outcome of DG3. Now we go very quickly, because we don't have much time, to the last phase. So you see business case identification, you see planning, you have a lot of decision gates, and now comes, after that is approved, what comes next? Construction and execution, okay? What we were saying before, the construction and execution part. I call it project execution. I have different boxes here. And I have detail engineering. Okay. I have then construction, Okay, and then I have testing and startup. And all of that I call project execution. Okay. And finally, I have the last decision gate. Okay, decision gate 4. And here I can still decide if to stop or to continue. And that doesn't happen very often, only if you have a major issue that happened here on that phase. Okay. Only some things are the platform was not delivered on time, there is a delay, or maybe the platform was more expensive than what you thought, or a natural catastrophe. But it has to be something really, really major to make you take the decision to stop in DG4. Okay. And then comes operations. And last part, abandonment and decommissioning. Okay, and with that, we finish the lecture today. So just to make a brief summary, we gave the rules of the game. They're not recorded, but they are written. Okay, the class, evaluation, where to find the material, reference material, be aware reference group. We have to get 2 more people. Then we said some things that we are going to cover in this course, okay, that are here, the technical constraints, and also get an overview of the process and how, what kind of indicators do we use. And the last part is the process. How is the process made? Okay, we made it very simple, a sequence of boxes with decision gates. Every time I have to do some studies, stop, and then based on that, take a decision to go to the next one. Any question before we close? No? Okay, see you tomorrow.